Mel, and this is Dr. Mel's message. I hope you enjoy this interview today because it's a little bit different. I have interviewed everything from actors, musicians, film producers, book authors. Now, today is quite different, and I think it's really important what she is doing. And I'm going to let her explain it to you. But she is an incredible woman with a giving heart, and her name is Dr. Patrice Little. And boy, let me tell you what this woman is up to. Welcome. How are you, Patrice?
Hi, Dr. Mill. Thank you for having me. I'm good.
Oh, well, I'm excited to bring what you have to offer to my viewership because it's incredible what you're doing. So let's just break the news to them. Let's talk about MP University. What is it?
So NP, which stands for NP for Nurse Practitioner or Nurse Practitioner Student University, is a membership for nurse practitioner students, our new generation of primary care providers of choice. And just to break it down, make it simple, is that currently the primary care provider there's a shortage as far as primary care providers, and so nurse practitioners fill in that gap. And what has happened over the years is that there has been a proliferation of proprietary schools that have capitalized on that demand. And, just like most things when it comes to quality, where there is capitalization and increase, there's sometimes a decrease in the quality that is produced. So our platform exists to serve as a supplemental resource to help nurse practitioner students in their core education.
Now, you are a nurse practitioner, correct?
Yes, I'm a doctorate prepared family nurse practitioner.
All right. Which I see several nurse practitioners and they're fabulous. And I can see where a support system is needed. So, well, number one, if a student is wanting to connect, because is it a networking organization or is it more for learning?
So it is. It's a membership where we have nurse practitioner students. They are able to network with the other nurse practitioner students across the globe, as well as develop a rapport with experts. So monthly we have expert training, just so the students could get a glimpse of what it's like as far as real life application. And the reason why this is really important, years ago when the nurse practitioner profession started to develop in around the late 60s. And we thank Dr. Loretta Ford and Henry Silver for that. The training was done along with the physician. So they were trained by physicians. So they got a particular foundation that was standardized. And again, things have changed. So lately, when it comes to the nurse practitioner education, it's been hit or miss. And the reason why is most of the schools that for nurse practitioner training is online, and the students have to find their own preceptors. So a preceptor is a way of saying like a mentor in the profession that teaches the individual how to do those particular skills, hands-on skills, and introduce them into the profession. Now, what brings it to be a need is that the program is typically fast, it's rigorous as well. And sometimes there's not enough time because many of the students are still working full-time or part-time as a registered nurse. So can you imagine learning a new skill while you still have the other areas of life that you're trying to maintain? And that skill comes along with a greater responsibility that could eventually be dangerous if you don't learn it the correct way. So that's what we do. We fill in that gap, and the gap really worsened during the pandemic. There was a shift everywhere throughout education, and we really won't realize the impact of that until a few years from now with our children. We'll notice that, hey, everyone didn't weren't a- weren't were not able to get the support that they needed in the same way in our profession. The nurse practitioner students are learning via online. So when the bulk of your education for something so important is online, it's important that you are connected with the right support, credible support, and a place where you can feel safe to ask questions about things you're unsure of. Because quite frankly, when it comes to evenings and weekends, the faculty are not available. I served in academia for a couple of years, and typically after you do your full day, Monday through Friday, it's a lot. It's not even part of the responsibility for faculty to be um, addressing questions after hours. When faculty do that, that's because they want to, but it's not a requirement.
You know, you said something really profound a minute ago that I haven't really even considered, and that is the impact 3, 4, 5 years from now. Do you see that because of the lack of hands-on experiences, although they're nurses, but like you said, it's a different skill set, becoming a nurse practitioner, without that hands-on experience, that would be like becoming a surgeon and not be able to touch a body.
Exactly. And
I
one of
mean,
the
it's
things
like, great.
it is. And then just to to backtrack a little bit, they're getting the hands-on training, usually about a minimum of 500 hours that's required. However, it's the fact that they're preceptors they find on their own. So there's really no way to really certify that when they connect with that preceptor that they're actually getting the hands-on training, or are they shadowing? You know, I mean, because it's one of those things that it's a concern. And then sometimes the the concern is about the when it comes to there's a rule, there's a 10 10 10 rule. So
Okay.
usually 10 years makes you an expert, or 10,000 hours. And this is something that I've known for years. And then also I've read in a couple of books. There's some great books out there, one that I'm reading now. And it talks about that the more you are exposed to a particular practice, it's just like a pilot. The more they fly and learn how to land and practice landing the plane, the better they are as far as judgment. And we
Yeah.
saw that, correct? We saw that recently with a pilot where for fun, he used to practice landing in, in an ocean, correct? On a body of water.
Right.
And that was with Sully. So when we
Right.
saw when an emergency situation happened, he practiced that skill so long it was second nature to him. So similarly, when it comes to our practice, when we're serving in that role as a nurse practitioner, what we do, because many people are not familiar with the differentiation between a registered nurse and advanced nursing practice, we are able to diagnose, assess, diagnose, treat, which that involves prescribing and making referral. This level of assessment is higher than that of an assessment for a registered nurse. So what happened is most of that part with the core training with learning how to write prescriptions and getting that the patho advanced patho foundation, they're doing it on their own. And this is something that I know from personal experience. I was in a hybrid program, and hybrid is part of it's mainly online, but you also have opportunities where you meet in a classroom setting where they can do hands-on where skills check off, but it's not like that at every school. So that's where the concern is. When it comes across the board, every school does not do it the same. Now, are they great schools out there where the program is exceptional and those NPs are ready and they do well? Absolutely. But this platform is for those where there is a gap. So they have a place to turn to, where they have the support, where they have someone who can help them break down a case. So they'll be able to know how to go about treating and approaching a case the next time they see it. So it's also important when you go through the program, because some programs are 1 year long, some programs are 2 years, and at the most 3 years, and 3 years would be a part-time program. it's important that there's a time for you, that pausing moment where you're able to reflect on what you're learning. But when you go through something so advanced so quickly within a year, it's retention is the concern. Retention, because when it comes to learning, no matter what age, whether it's childhood or an adult learning, repetition is key.
Mhm.
And the more you're exposed to a variety of patients with different diagnoses and different progression as far as those diseases, the more you're able to practice your critical thinking skills, or develop, pardon me, your critical thinking skills, so you know how to handle that in the future.
It
And the
could actually mean
concern,
a difference between treating someone in a life and death situation
correct,
and they live.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so a lot of things have changed. Since I first became a nurse practitioner, I've been one for, let's see, 7 years now. I can't believe it. Time goes by pretty quickly. And the screening, there's not the same as far as the level of screening that was done before to make sure that the person is equipped to handle that type of responsibility mentally. And the other thing is, many of the nurses, they are segueing from RN, the program, right into a nurse practitioner, which means some of them are not even practicing, using basic hands-on training as a registered nurse. And that's where you develop your assessment skills, the basic assessment skills, knowing how, as far as the color of your patient, the being able to know when they're in distress, and just the basics. I can go into the technicalities of it, but just the basics.
Yeah. And I can see where a program such as yours is very beneficial, because anytime you establish mentorships and you can get in with someone that actually does what you're aspiring to do, it helps you. Now, you are the founder and creator of this, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
How did you come up with the idea?
Well, behind every business, there's always a story. It's always an
Okay.
interest story. So, and I have two. The first one is when I was completing my doctoral studies, it really focused on nurse practitioners gaining full practice authority. So, full practice authority, that is a word to say that nurse practitioners can practice without being under a actual physician. Some places describe it as a collaborative, some places describe it as a supervising physician. So there are about 23 states right now that have where nurse practitioners can practice without being connected to a physician. That's the simplest way to say it. But
Okay.
then there are many states where it's restricted, where they have to have a collaborative agreement, which is just a paper on file that says they're connected to this physician. I'm in a state that has that. And as I was doing my project, even though there were some beautiful things, I found the most concerning thing is that people were concerned. And when I say people, that's physicians, general public, as well as some legislators. They were concerned about the fact that, what about some of the NPs who are not as equipped? And I said, you have a point. And then it brought me back to my experience when I first came out of nurse practitioner school. I passed boards the first time on the first try. I graduated with a great GPA. I felt like I was well equipped. Matter of fact, my preceptors had a medical background. One was a nurse practitioner and she was amazing. I received great evaluation, but all of that is irrelevant when it comes to the fact that on the day where you're supposed to practice, your first day, and you're not competent enough to make it through the day. And when I say competent enough, I mean where, even though I knew what I was supposed to do as an NP, but it was the fact that I still needed a little bit more experience, hours of training. Nurse practitioners, we get 500 hours of training minimum before we finish NP school. And when you compare that to physicians who get thousands of hours of training, So they have the opportunity to see a variation of different cases. And so when it comes to things that in a complex state, they know how to handle it. And with us, I'm not saying that, many of us, the longer we practice, of course, the better we are. But for safety measures, the concern was, hey, maybe nurse practitioners who come out of school should not practice with full practice authority right away. Maybe they do need an additional 2 to 3 years
Kind of like a
to secure.
residency.
Exactly, like a residency. And what happens is right now there is a growing number of residencies for nurse practitioners that are being available, but it's still not enough to cover the large amount of graduates. I want to say on average, there's about 20,000 nurse practitioners that graduate per year. I have to go back and check with that number, but I think that's what it was the last time I checked for, I want to say maybe in 2018. So that's a large amount of nurse practitioners that are entering the profession, and there are a small amount of residencies. I myself applied to a residency, and at that time there was only one available, and I was not accepted. It was very competitive, and I felt like I would have benefit from some additional hands-on training. And so I just don't want anyone to experience what I experienced. And thank God no patient was harmed or anything like that. I know myself, so I checked in quite frequently with a colleague. And I'm not saying it's wrong to check with your colleagues if you're unsure. Definitely do that. That's
Right,
good, because that's why we're telling them right now on this network to do that, develop a
right.
rapport, because that's what you do anyways in practice. But there comes a point where you should also be secure enough in what you're doing so you're not interrupting your colleagues' flow for the day. So that's where the issue came. I interrupted the flow for that particular colleague, and they asked me not to return. It was a locum tenens position, so it wasn't something that I wasn't there for full-time employment. So that's the good thing. It was a contractual basis. So it it didn't hurt as much.
Right.
But I will tell you this, after that, I was really intentional about the next area I was going to go into. I was like, maybe I'll work at a place where the acuity or the speed is a little slower and the acuity is not as high, and then go from there. So, and that's it. And sometimes it's hard to for us to share our stories like that. If everyone is not comfortable letting the public know about their limitations. But I think one of the joys that I've had a lot of limitations in life. And the beauty of limitations and failures is that you can learn from it. It equips you, and you're more empowered to help someone else. And that's why I'm here to serve, to help other students be comfortable and competent as they move forward. But overall, making sure that we as a profession, that we preserve the greatness that we contribute to healthcare, and making sure that our patients are safe.
Now, where can someone go to find out more information about the MP Student University?
So they can visit npstudentuniversity.com, and the sister company is also NP Student Magazine. So we have some articles and spotlights some students in practice, as well as follow us on social media at NP Student Mag. Again, that's at NP Student Mag for Facebook as well as Instagram.
Phenomenal. Um, sometimes the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
And I think you were filling a huge practicing gap for some students out there. And in the long run, I can see the benefits of this. So congratulations on what you're doing with this. Incredible.
Thank
And
you.
and I can see where it can become actually a leadership model for nurse practitioners. And I can see where this is going. So congratulations on that. And again,
Thank
I'm speaking with Dr. Patrice Little, and she is the founder of MP Student University, which helps, supports, mentors those nursing students that have the goals and are training for nurse practitioners. Yes.
you. Yes.
Thank you again, Patrice, for sharing your story and your innovation with all of us. And I wish you and all the nurses out there, first of all, I want to say thank you for serving, number one, especially during a pandemic, because y'all are not just frontline essential workers. I think you're the heart of medicine. So thank you for that.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Again, I'm Dr. Mel, and this is another episode of Dr. Mel's Message. See y'all later.
NP Student University connects NP students to the resources they need so they can stop second guessing the care they give their patients and get a jump start on their professional goals. Whether you realize it or not, the NP job market is increasingly competitive, and learning the meat of a rigorous program on your own is not enough to prepare you to be a competitive provider. NP Student University provides the tools and the connections you need so you can be that model NP. Be sure to visit npstudentuniversity.com.